purpose, their purpose discovered them. In other words, they were just busy doing what they like to do or what seemed to come naturally to them, because that's all genius is. Genius is just discovering the thing that you do best or that comes natural to you, and then putting all of your energy into it, and then employing or bringing other people around your life to add to your life the other areas of deficiency that you have in your life. But that's all a genius is. A genius gets credit for being great at everything, when the reality is they may only be great at one thing. A genius can be like Albert Einstein, a master in physics, win a Nobel Prize in physics, but failed grammar school over 8 times, and wasn't a writer at all, had to bring people around him to write out letters. But he won a Nobel Prize in physics because he found what came naturally to him, threw all of his energy into that, and then brought people around him that were great at other things. And so that's very important. That's very important whether you're dealing with seasons of change or with your own life. So now, if my potential is the greatest part of who I am, then there's one critical question, and I'm going to give you 3 to write down. And this is just a preface of what I'm going to deal with today. But there's one critical question that you need to ask yourself if you're going to pursue purpose and passion for productivity. Because that's what we're heading for today. That's the purpose of this session and these sessions today, is to bring you to productivity, not only in this organization first, but in every area of your life. To make sure that you are productive, that everything that comes out of you is in agreement with what's for you. You ever wondered why, even in your personal life, why you sometimes attracted what you consider the wrong thing? And if you stopped and did an honest assessment about it, it could have been because maybe there was something that you were giving out of you that was or wasn't consistent with who you are. And I say was or wasn't. Because sometimes we can be attracting something that's telling the truth about us and we don't want to accept the truth. Or it could be that I'm not allowing what comes out of me to be true to what's in me, but I'm adjusting myself to the environment or the conditions or the circumstances around me, and as a result, I begin to diminish me. And there's nothing worse in the world than to diminish you while you're going after the best that's for you. How do you expect what's for you to find you if you're not in agreement with you? So here it is. The first question that you have to answer in your life as it relates to purpose and passion for productivity, 1 word, 3 letters, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why is the most critical question you can ask yourself about every area of your life, socially, secularly, and spiritually. In partnerships, in relationships, in friendships, in business, in school, in career. The greatest question you can ask yourself is why. The reason why is so imperative and important is because why deals with motive. Why deals with motive. So why am I a part of seasons of change? Why do I care about students? Why do I care about teenage pregnancy? Why do I care about poverty? Why do I care about a young person having self-esteem? Why do I care about changing my community? What's my motivation? So why is number 1. And the why is greater than the other 2 questions. Here they are. The what is the second question, and the how. But why is the greatest question. You can know what to do, and you can know how to do it. But if you don't know why you're doing it, then it voids out the what and the how. Because why is my motive? What is my mandate? Next to the word what, put mandate. And how is my movement? I'm going to tell you why these three questions are so important, and then we'll get into this dialogue concerning the leading edge. And what I'm going to ask you to do as we get into this conversation, if you have questions, write them down, and I'm going to pause intermittently through this conversation and just allow you time to ask questions. I'm not going to wait to the end. I want this to be fluid, so if it's fresh in your mind, we can deal with it while the seed's going in the ground. So how is your why is your motivation? What is your mandate? And how is your movement? The reason those three questions are important is because it helps you to discriminate and to decipher whether or not what you're doing is a calling or a career. And there's a difference. And the difference determines what you get out of it. So that's why this why, what, and how is so important. This motive, mandate, and movement is so important, because the answers to those questions, particularly the why, will help you to discriminate and discern whether what you're doing and your reason for sitting in this room, whether it is a calling or a career. And this is so important because a career is something that utilizes what you have the ability to do, but it doesn't require all of you to get it done. So careers are what lead to burnout, because somebody decided to do this because this is my proficiency. This is where I'm competent. I mean, I'm just good like that. Okay, so you go along a while, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Now you go from being a surgeon to a chef. After all of those years of schooling, undergrad and medical school and residency, and you get through all of that and say, oh, I think I want to be a chef. What changed? You know what changed? Good wasn't motivation enough anymore. Career wasn't doing it anymore, because you realize just because I have the ability for this, this is not requiring all of me, so guess what? It's not fulfilling me. And it's so important, because you can engage something but yet not get the most out of it because of what you're putting into it. And so you burn out, or you end up frustrated, or you start frustrating other people only because you've chosen a career path. Watch this. But calling, on the other hand, calling is not just what you do. Calling requires who you are. So calling says, I bring my abilities and my inabilities. I bring my confidence and my insecurity. I bring all of me into this. I'm not doing this just because I'm competent, just because I'm capable, just because I'm proficient. I'm doing this because this requires all of me, and this is what I'm made for. Now, what happens as a result of calling, you can create a career. So as a result of a calling, you can make a career. But just because you have a career doesn't make it your calling. And so it's important to understand that as you move forward in your process of progress for productivity in your life and fulfilling the purpose and passion of your life, is to understand your reason for being a part of this process or movement that's bringing change in the lives of others. I want to talk today about the leading edge. That's what I want to deal with today in this session the leading edge. The word edge is actually an acronym, EDGE. Write it out. The first letter, the E, is for expectation. We're going to talk about the leading edge. I want to push you beyond what's been comfortable for you so you can discover the rest of who you are and where you're supposed to be. That's my assignment today for this organization and for your life, is to push you beyond what's been comfortable for you so that you can see the rest of you and see where you're supposed to be so you can be consistently productive in every area of your life. So the E is for expectation. The D is for development. The D is for development. The G is for goals. Here's the edge. The G is for goals. And then the last E is for excellence. So to live on the edge or be on the leading edge, number one, I've got to have an expectation of what I would like to see happen in my life, for my organization, through my calling. Two, I've got to be willing to engage development, such as what's happening this week and this weekend. As a result of that development, I've got to set some goals for myself. So I was listening to some of the remarks of what you all have been ruminating and musing about as a result of the dialogues, the conversations, and the presentations you've already had. Well, it's important to commit yourself to that. So if there are highlights that stuck with you, commit yourself and set goals for yourself out of that development. And then the E on edge, the last E, is for excellence, which means once I set those goals, pursue those goals with passion and priority. There is a 18th century avant-garde French poet by the name of Apollinaire Gilliam. And at a reception, he quoted these words from a poem called The Edge. He said, "Come to the edge." And they said, "We are afraid." He said, "Come to the edge." They came, he pushed them, and they flew. That's the power of expectation, development, goals, and excellence. Is it brings you to a new vista or a new vision of what you perhaps never considered. And then right when you come to the edge and you're still trying to get your equilibrium and your balance, like standing on the peak of a mountain or looking over Niagara Falls at how amazing the view is, right when you get there, somebody pushes you. And so that's the whole point of this provocation today, to push you to that place. Well, one other thing I want to give you quickly before I deal with leadership and how the people around you are so critical to what comes out of your life. It's a powerful thing. On our way here, I was talking to Tavion about the fact that time is our greatest resource, but people are our greatest commodity. But even with understanding that, you've got to be careful that you don't waste your greatest resource in places where the commodity doesn't know its value. Time is your greatest. Time is more important than money. Time is literally money. Because there are things you'll do with your time that there's no money involved, but the worth of what you did could hardly be compensated with capital, even though you want them to try. But time is your greatest resource. People is your greatest commodity. And we were talking about friendships and how in friendships there is the responsibility of the person initiating the friendship, but the accountability of the person being engaged in the friendship to show value to it. And that's true in business partnerships. That's true with coworkers. That's true with a supervisor. That's true at home. That's true everywhere. Be careful that you, how can I say this nicely, that you don't help people lie about their connection to you by you overcompensating for their lack of accountability. So you putting all yourself into it. You are working on a project. You initiated the project, you set up the parameters, and you say, look, by Wednesday, I just need your piece. Wednesday comes, girl, you know, and because y'all tight like that, and you've been doing this for 6 months, you keep letting this person slide, and yet you're giving value to them that they're not showing to the process. And what it creates a retardation in your productivity because it's limiting your efficiency and effectiveness, because when you could be exploring more of you, you're having to spend time after you finish doing you, now doing what they should be doing because they were not willing to be accountable for who you are. And it's important to understand this. Time is your greatest resource. So from now on, when you do something, ask yourself, in the time I'm giving this, would I give this person, this organization, this relationship, this partnership, if this minute was $1 million, are they worth $1 million a minute for me to give away? Wow. Would I give away $1 million a minute? Because time is your greatest resource. And if I would not give away $1 million a minute, then why am I giving you this minute? Because if I can't justify putting $1 million in your hand and know you'll be accountable, why am I putting a minute of my life in your hand? That's how you got to start seeing time. It's going to cut out a whole lot of extra conversations. And people you just waste time on that you know will never do anything with what you give them. There's a reason we know the names like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. There's a reason we know about statesmen. There's a reason we know about those who made major contributions to society. You know why we know? You know the secret that they don't give away is how they use their time. Notice with truly great people, you don't hear of a whole lot of people being interviewed as their friends. Notice that. How many of Warren Buffett's friends have you seen interviewed on CNN? Or Bill Gates? Or Steve Jobs? You can count them on one hand. And if you do the math, most of them are in the same context and are sharing the same worth. So if you got a Steve Jobs, you got a Steve Wozniak, who was his partner in crime and starting Apple. You get what I'm saying? Yes. So if I did inventory of your life, who's around you? Because it could be that who's around you is preventing the real value and worth of you. You don't have to dig there today. I think I want to stay there. Because here it is. You can never allow other people's blueprints of beliefs to determine your design of destiny. Seasons of change and your role in it, and your role in the world, and what you feel your calling is, because I'm going to assume that everybody that's here is here because of calling. When it comes to touching lives to transform the world, that's a condition of calling. That's not about the conformity to career. And so I'm going to assume that everybody that's here, you're here because you have a calling. You've been compelled to something. You've been compelled to make a difference. And so with that compulsion, it is imperative that you don't allow people who may not have your passion to dictate what your BS or belief system is. And so you got to be guarded with who you let into your space. And I'm talking in every context. So when you talk, there's no way to talk about purpose and vision and passion and productivity and it not be plural. Because as I said earlier, your life is not compartmentalized. So what I'm teaching you today applies to every area of your life, which will affect your productivity in seasons of change. And in any organization you're a part of, and in any business venture you have, or any entrepreneurial attempt that you have, or any social change you want to bring. It's important to understand that it all fits together because it's all coming out of you. So the more consistent you are with yourself. That's why they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. You know why they say that? Because in order to imitate somebody, that means they've been so consistent in being that until it's worth you copying. So imitation actually gives credence or credibility to the fact that somebody's consistent in something. So people imitate Bill Clinton's inimitable voice. I believe it was Bono. It's been all over CNN over the past few days. I think I've had 4 flights in 2-3 days. So I was in Michigan at the beginning of the week speaking, back home in New Orleans, and then here and somewhere in between. And so I was catching CGI, Clinton's Global Initiative, and Bono, did a dead-on imitation of Bill Clinton. But the reason he could do it in Clinton's inimitable manner is because Clinton is consistent being. And so the same should be true about your life when it comes to productivity and when it comes to purpose, that there should be such a consistency in you until people can literally imitate you because of what you do. So in order to come to that place or to agree with yourself about who you are, there are 4 areas you got to focus on, and here they are. So this is dealing with the design for development is what I want to call this, because this is not in your notes. Call this design for development. There are 4 blueprints that you need in your life that determine the development of your life. 4 blueprints you need in your life that determine the development of your life so that you can be productive in every area of your life. 4 blueprints. 4 blueprints. So this is the design for development. Okay, the first blueprint is your spiritual blueprint. First blueprint is your spiritual blueprint, which is how you see God. And I don't mean that in a religious context. I mean that in an expansive context of how you see what you were made to become. How you see God. You gotta get your own blueprint with that. It can't be something that's imposed from somebody else, because what they impose on you may not necessarily be the right interpretation of what's necessary for you to become the rest of you. They could be imposing on you a reflection of themselves and calling it God. So get your own spiritual blueprint. The second blueprint you need is a psychological blueprint. This is the design for development. The psychological blueprint is how you see you. And this is very critical, because this psychological blueprint, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you were raised, is shaped by psychological fingerprints from childhood and parents and influences. I was sharing when we were driving here today, Tavion was commending some areas of my life, and I told her, I said, I have to attribute my process of discovery and development to having parents who recognized what I had an interest in and then cultivated the things that I was interested in. They didn't impose on me what they thought I ought to be doing. But from the age of 4 years old, they actually saw my bent. So they saw me just picking up dictionaries. I was 4 and could read and talk fluently. By the time I was 7, I was entering public speaking contests. Because they paid attention to what came out of me. It was just natural for me. So when they saw that, they didn't try to shift it to something else. They fed it. Yeah. So my dad would just sit down and read the dictionary to me. And he'd be wore out before I was. And that's what you got to understand. When it comes to your psychological blueprint, pay attention to the fingerprints on your life. And the ones that are good, keep them. The ones that are bad, cut them off beneath the skin. Because if you carry all of those fingerprints on your life, it's shaping your life. So your spiritual blueprint is how you see God. Your psychological blueprint is how you see yourself. And sometimes that may require some work because you may not have anybody around you that has the insight or the foresight to see you for you because they don't know themselves.
Right.
And so as a result, they try to make you a clone. The greatest act of manipulation is when you try to clone me instead of cultivate me because you don't have the ability or the capacity to see what I'm designed to become. I don't even like friendships like that. I don't like anything. It makes me itch. I don't like anything connected to my life that's insecure with what it is because what it'll do is it'll try to compete with you.
Yes.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
And anything, watch this. Anything, and this is critical. I think I'll get to it in the second session on teamwork. But it's impossible for somebody to compete with you and collaborate with you simultaneously. You can't be on a job with somebody that's trying to take your job and y'all accomplish the job at the same time. Not going to happen. So if we're going to collaborate, then we've got to come together for a mutual purpose. And so, okay, whatever comes out, comes out. Whoever gets the promotion, gets the promotion. Yes, I want it. Yes, I know you want it. But let's come together and let's do our best with this job. And if you get it, you remember me and give me a little something.
Yes. Yes.
You get how it works?
That's good. That's good.
Because if you don't do that, then both of you all are going to be stuck where you are. Because you're going to experience atrophy.
That's good. That's good.
Inertia is going to take place. What ought to be going out is going to go in. So now you don't even want to come to work tomorrow because you said what I'm created to do, I can't do because I'm working with somebody who's trying to compete with what we're supposed to be doing instead of helping us accomplish it. So your spiritual blueprint is how you see God. Your psychological blueprint is how you see yourself. Your relational blueprint is how you see others. This is very important. And the order that I'm giving them are their order of importance. The order that I'm giving these in is their order of importance because if you're not clear on what you're made for, then you're not going to be clear on, and I'll recapitulate, so don't worry if you miss something, I'll repeat it again. If you're not clear on what you're made for, you're not going to be clear on who you are. If you're not clear on who you are, you're not going to be able to see people for who they are. It's like a greeting card that was written once, and this shows you what happens when somebody has psychological blurred lines in their life. The greeting card said, "There's nobody right in the world but you and I, and I've had my doubts about you lately." That's what happens when a person is not psychologically secure with themselves. Then they look at everybody else through tinted glasses. Small